Welcome back to Bloom. Healthy boundaries are a way of letting others know how we deserve to be treated. But it also allows us to show others that we understand how they deserve to be treated. Joining us now to discuss setting healthy boundaries is Rachel DeStefano. She is a licensed mental health counselor and marriage and family therapist with McNulty Counseling. Welcome to Bloom, Rachel.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I love this topic. Why is it so important to establish healthy boundaries? Not COVID boundaries like we have, healthy boundaries.
So understanding where we come from and what boundaries we need to set helps us figure out what we need and teach other people what we need and how we deserve to be treated. So a lot of times we're not even aware of what we need, which is part of the issue. Is someone asks me, right, what do you need? And I'm like, I don't know, and that's scary. So this provides some context. And so when we think about boundaries, we think about where we're starting and kind of where the work needs to lead. So there are three main types of boundaries.
Okay.
And I kind of see it as a spectrum, right? So on one end of the spectrum, we've got what's called porous boundaries.
Porous?
Porous, like a sponge.
Okay.
So like you imagine a sponge, you imagine the consistency, the texture of a sponge, it's not very firm. And so these individuals or these folks tend to overshare too much. They have trouble saying no. They like to think a lot about what other people think of them, so they give a lot of power to other people. These are the people that don't really understand how they deserve to be treated. So these people might be accepting of abuse or accepting of disrespect because their main fear is that if I don't comply, I'm going to be rejected. So that's one end. On the far other end,
I bet I can guess.
What are they?
Rigid, like you share too much or you don't share enough. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. So these folks think they're setting boundaries, but really they have like these walls or these massive fortresses. Like they've got a moat and they control who comes in and who gets out. And these people too, it's really interesting, fear the same thing. So they too fear rejection. So if you get too close to me, then you could reject me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to limit our contact. I'm going to avoid getting too close. I'm going to avoid intimacy. Even in relationships, I might seem detached. I don't share a lot of personal information. I definitely don't ask for help because that would involve being vulnerable. So these folks are very much also scared. You just wouldn't see it because they don't let you see it.
So how can you achieve being somewhere in the middle? Is that possible?
That's the goal. So yeah, the goal is to be in the middle, which is what we call our healthy boundaries. So these folks are kind of like a blend, right? So they don't overshare, they don't undershare. They understand their values, they understand their needs. They are able to communicate these. They're able to say no. They also respect you when you say no. So these are the folks that are able to say that your needs are important, but so are my needs. I listen, but I also talk. These are our assertive folks. And that's really the goal, is to figure out, like, do I lean more in one direction? And as a result of where I lean, what steps do I need to take to find that middle ground?
And you talk about internal and external boundaries. As we work towards this goal of being somewhere in the middle, why is it important to differentiate between those two?
So external is the dialogue I have with you. That's what's happening right now. But as I'm talking to you, I'm also having a dialogue with self, right? Where I'm thinking, oh my goodness, am I saying this correctly? Like, what is she thinking? And I've got this own like little inner critic up here.
Yes.
And so like, if I was to have healthy boundaries with self, which is the goal, right? I'm able to counter what I'm saying to self in the moment. And I'm able to like validate self and like talk to self in a way that's healthy instead of letting every thought that comes in be treated like fact. So the way I talk to and treat self, the boundaries I have with self, the dialogue I have with myself, if this makes sense, is then how I talk to, treat, and dialogue with you. So if I'm unaware of that conversation or in denial with that conversation with self, then how am I able to tell you what I need?
That's so great. What about, I assume a lot of people are scared, that fear plays into this. How do we frame the fear that keeps us from taking risks?
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's a game I have to play with myself, right? Or that some people have to play with themselves. It's, what's the risk of staying as I am versus the risk of doing something different? So if I stay as I am, if I keep engaging in these behaviors, it's safe, it's predictable, and some of us like that. We stick with what we know because we know what's going to happen next. But if I was to pause and ask myself what else could be, like what do I stand to gain? Could I have more intimate relationships? Could I feel more heard and seen and validated by my loved ones? Could I make them feel more heard and seen and validated? Then I start to gain this evidence and kind of balance this scale of, maybe it is worth the risk because this is everything I could have.
Wonderful. What a great topic and great information. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
And you can go to mcnultycounseling.com for more. There's more Bloom ahead. Stay with us.